Now stop, ladies and gentlemen. Now in for a little bit. Welcome to Stories Written by a Current Prisoner with your favorite journalist, Tony. Today's episode in particular revolves around the city of Fresno, the Fresno Bulldogs, man. It's a very interesting story, man. It's a very interesting tale. So this one's a long one. It's a 30-minute story. However, right around the 15, 16-minute marker, man, is where it starts to get very juicy, man. And it revolves around a tale, man, how Fresno Bulldog gangs feud within each other. You know, it starts off in the streets, or it starts in the prison system, and it actually trickles off into the streets, or starts in the streets and then trickles off inside the prison system. So it's a very unique tale, man. I hope you guys enjoy it, man. This is going to be a multiple-part series, you know, with Tristes. So with that being said, let's go ahead and waste no time whatsoever and dive right into it. Thank you for being my guest. With that being said, would you guys rather have a Conejo story or a Mr. Capone story first? You know, I'm working on a few rappers, man, so let me know what it is. Let's roll.
So what do they call you?
They call me Triste. That's short for sad boy.
Were you incarcerated for? How long is your sentence?
I'm incarcerated for torture, and it gave me a 7 to life sentence.
Where are you from out here on the streets?
I'm from Fresno, California. It's better than the Central Valley.
Do you or did you belong to any type of gangs, groups, organizations?
Yes, I used to be a Fresno Bulldog gang member. That's out of Fresno, California.
All right, my friend. You know, I understand that you had a few words of wisdom before we dove into this interview. Would you please go ahead and express those words of wisdom real quick?
Well, I'm trying to get my story out there to, if I could prevent anybody from following my footsteps. You know, I want to, even if it's just one person. If I had somebody, you know, that I could look up to or tell me right from wrong, I know I wouldn't be in prison right now. So I'm just trying to get my story out there to help somebody and learn from my mistakes.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely, my friend. I thank you, man, for taking the time out of your day and sharing your story, sharing your testimony. Of course, I know it's not easy for people to be able to open up, but I thank you for being a guest on the show, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it.
You know, before we dive into your life story, man, would you be able to tell me a little about the Fresno Bulldogs, man, about how they began, and how they became their own entity, and how they actually broke away from the North and started doing their own thing?
Well, the Bulldog gang, our history, we started off as being Norteños at first. We were known as F-14s. And, you know, the reason we broke up, because for a while, Fresno, we were the backbone of Norte. And then back in the 80s, in prison, Fresno Bulldogs were putting in the most of the work. Fresno Norteños were putting in the most of the work. And then when somebody had to get got, it was always the Fresno Norteños that was getting hit, and they were the ones doing the hitting. And, you know, everybody else was just riding on Fresno coattail. And then, you know, everybody started, you know, seeing what was going on, what was happening, and Fresno was always getting the short end of the stick. So the homies, you know, the older homies, they come up with something, you know, at that time, Fresno State was real big in the news. You know, Fresno State is our Fresno City college, our university, and they were real big on the news at that time. They were winning, you know, little championships, and one of the homies got the idea to separate ourselves from Norteños and become our own entity. And then that's when we picked up Fresno Bulldogs. So when you came to the pen, they would ask you, what are you, a Norteño, Sureño? And we would say we're Bulldogs. That's how it all started. We separate, you know, that's how we would separate ourselves. And then at first, the Norteños didn't like it. They told us, you know, for us to drop, you know, the Bulldogs and just, you know, keep going back to Norte. But because we see what was going on, where it was headed, and, you know, and there was no future being a Norteño, we chose to, you know, stick to Bulldogs. And that's how we ended up becoming our own, you know, our own organization. You want to say, you know, we dropped the Norte and it just came red for little Bulldogs. That's it.
Was there any type of opposition from your fellow gang members, people who didn't want to follow suit with this whole Bulldog thing? And you guys ended up, you know, going to war as a result of it.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yes, since it was new, a lot of people didn't, want to follow suit. They thought it was gonna, not go nowhere, and they were scared of what was gonna happen, because Norte is considered a structured, organization, and people at that time were getting killed. And I remember back in the 80s and early 90s, a bunch of bodies were showing up in Fresno because of that. You see on the news 4 or 5 execution style murders due to the NF, calling hits in Fresno. And, there were some cats that from Fresno that were Fresno Norteños that, they didn't want to, that to this day, held their own. But nothing was changing being a Norteño. We seen once we left, it was all downhill from there. Fresno was the backbone, despite what anybody else says. And look at them now. They're nowhere near what they used to be before. And after that,
what do you mean by that?
What makes you say that? Well, because they're not as strong anymore. The Norteños are not as strong no more. They're not as deep as they were. They're not a faction no more in prison. Because I remember, where when NF came about, we were right up there with, Emmer, toe to toe. And then now, you'd be lucky if you run into a Norteño in the shoe. I remember being in the shoe, it'd be 30, 40 Norteños, and 30, 40 Bulldogs and the rest outsiders. Now you go to a shoe, be like 3 or 4 Norteños now, and they're just dropping like flies. They lost Sacramento. Sacramento broke off. They're losing, little city here and there, but Fresno was the first one to, jump, decided to do our own thing.
Heard a little bit about the Sacramento situation. Would you be able to tell me a little more about it?
Well, Sacramento, they were being treated like, second-class citizens también by, which was at that time San Jose. There was a stronghold in Salinas, and Sacramento. They were getting treated like second-class citizens, and then, they were noticing it también. And then they decided, to follow suit as Bulldogs, and run their own thing with Fresno, Sacramento Norteños, and then they started something called Northern Riders. But the difference between them and us, they chose to instead of being on a GP yard, they chose to get more numbers by going to a SLY yard. So they became, instead of becoming an active gang like the Fresno Bulldogs, they became an SLY gang. And then just like as recently, they dropped the Northern Riders, and it just became Riders, and then they accept cats from ex-Sureños, ex-Bulldogs, Norteños, blacks, whites, everything, But yeah, they're more now considered now a SLY gang, not like the Bulldogs. Bulldogs, we still got active homies, on active yarders, They'll still holding it down, and you go to YouTube, you'll see, every day there's incidents with Sureños and Bulldogs. There'll be 100 Sureños. It'll show on YouTube 100 Sureños rush 20 Bulldogs, in Pelican Bay or Calipatria.
Is there a certain structure base within the Bulldog organization? Like, is there some type of structure? Is there some type of leadership? Is there some type of chain of command?
Well, we don't have shot callers, like the Nuestra Familia and Emma. We don't have shot callers like that. Like with those, it's like the way you grow rank is if you put in work. Like, say, for instance, for me, I put in a lot of work, so that's why I became, well known, well respected in the Fresno gang, Fresno Bulldog gang. I'm well known, and wherever I went, I pretty much spoke for all the homeboys. And every time I introduce myself, I got young homies. Oh, it's the other one everybody talks about, because of that. But there's other cats like from other neighborhoods that that what we call their big homies. They'll speak for that little neighborhood or whatnot. And when we get together to make a decision, it'll be all the big homies from all the barrios, But then you got some individuals like said, me, not anymore, because I'm now considered SNY. I jumped out of the Bulldog gang to hopefully one day get a date to go home. I was like one of the few that had a lot of influences on the whole Fresno, the whole city. When I come to prison, or pretty much every yard I went to, I would speak for the Fresno car because of all the work I put in. There's only like right now there was like there's like four of us that put in, the same amount of work. But me, I'm pro Bulldog. That's all I was. Others are, selfish, all about their bodies and stuff. But not me. I was all about Bulldogs, and everybody seen that. And then I wasn't one of these older homies that tell you, hey, go do this, go do that. I would go do it. And, I would lead by example. And then that's how I got a lot of my respect, and that's how I moved up real quick.
Can you paint the scene out there in Fresno, the different type of Bulldog neighborhoods that they are and their entities and who they are?
See, right now there's a bunch of youngsters, because I got two brothers that are still active gang members, Bulldog gang members, and I talk to them constantly. And right now, if you look at the Fresno news, there's a murder every day in Fresno. It's gang related. Fresno is what I call a gang city. It's not like LA. LA, you got your cholos, your gang members, your Crips and all that. And then up north, Fresno, it's a family. It's like your mom, your dad, your uncles, your grandma, your grandpa are gang members. You go to a family reunion in Fresno, everybody's a gang member. You see your grandma, she's 50, 60, 75 years old, tattoos on her neck, ex-homegirl. My mom.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
My mom, she's like 69, I think, right now, and she's an old school homegirl también. And my dad's an old school Pachuco, so we grew up in this, Everybody's gang related. That's what I call Fresno. Fresno's a gang related city. You go to the news right now, there's a murder every day. And that's how Fresno is right now. It's gang related. My little brothers tell me, even if you don't want to be in the gang no more, you still got to have a gun. You still got to be strapped. And talking to homies that just came from the streets, they go, man, people be caught sleeping, pumping gas at the welfare line, at the store, So you got to have a gun. Like, if I were to get out, even though I don't want to be a gang no more because of who I was and my reputation, I would have to carry a gun on me, or either that or be a victim. And sad to say, I had a lot of homies that have been down 15, 20 years to get out and get killed a week later. That's how gang-related Fresno is. We have a bunch of neighborhoods, but right now it's the youngsters that are rapping, that are going wild right now. They're not thinking about nothing. They don't care about nothing. They're thinking to shoot first, ask questions later.
You're absolutely right about that, bro. It's like the city of Long Beach. A lot of people don't ever mention it too much, but there's like a homicide literally every single day or every other day. And it's like that in Fresno, man. I'm always constantly running into articles of a murder here, 2 murders here, Fresno Bulldog this. It's quite disturbing. It's quite disturbing, to be honest, man. But you had said, you mentioned to me a little recently that you know of somebody who was released, and then a week later he was actually murdered out here on the streets.
Yes, I got not only just one, a few of my homies that gotten out after doing 15, 20 years, and a week later they get killed. And then I got
tell me about them.
Active homie. Well, it's like Fresno is like, it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows when you're getting out. It's like, and sad to say, you get people that will set you up, like girls, come to this party, this and that, and then like me, I stabbed a lot of people since I've been in prison. I stabbed a lot of people, and homies too. So that'll follow you. And I got other homeboys that done the same thing, because in prison, like right now, on a 180, we didn't have no enemy. We didn't have no sureños. We didn't have no norteños to funk with. So we would funk with each other. And then that's how we will make enemies. We'll get off with each other, and then that'll carry on to the streets. And, you see somebody, that stabbed your cousin, you're going to get your run backs. And, and everybody's out there right now with that gunplay. Ain't nobody fist fighting. Ain't nobody, everybody's out with that gunplay. And, as I say, when we get out after 15, 20 years, and just to get killed a week later. I just ran into somebody here the other day, and he goes, "You're from Fresno?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, Blinded?" And I was, he asked my homie from my neighborhood, and he goes, "Oh, I heard he got killed. They ran up on him." I'm like, "That right?" I go, "I didn't even know that." And I was like, "Man, that was one of my good homies I grew up with from my neighborhood, and he got killed." And I was like, "Wow."
You have 60 seconds remaining.
You going to call me back, sir?
Yeah, I'll call you right back, right?
Okay.
I'm going to hang up and call you right back.
So you mentioned to me your friend Blinded that was recently killed out there on the streets after being paroled. Man, that's very unfortunate. That's very sad, especially after spending such a significant amount of time behind those walls. Is there any other friends that you remember when you were young, when you were still out here on the streets, that lost their lives due to this gang banging stuff?
Well, I just talked to my little brother too, and then my little brother who was with me in Pleasant Valley. My little brother, my cellie, and we had a little homeboy named Potato. He was from McKinsey. That's my neighborhood in Fresno, and he only had 4 years. He only had 4 years to go, and then I called my little brother the other day, and I told him, what's going on, what's the latest, because my little brother's from my neighborhood too, and he goes, oh, remember Potato? And I go, yeah, they killed him. Like, nah. And I go, what happened? He goes, I don't know. He was walking late at night around 1 o'clock, right there in the neighborhood, and someone pulled up to him, and they got him. And he went to the funeral, and his family were Mexican orientated, meaning they're paisas. He grew up in Fresno, but his family were the type that worked in the field. They didn't know nothing about it, and they didn't know nothing about gangs or nothing. But that hurt me because he was a youngster. He was like in his 28 years old, and he just did 4 years in prison for a stupid mistake, and then got out and wasn't even out that long, and he died at the prime of his life, gang-related, murder. And what I tell everybody, one thing about Fresno is, in Fresno, the cops when it comes to a gang murder, they don't care. They don't care about gangs. You could go up to somebody, as long as it's a gang-related murder, they let it happen. They don't investigate it or nothing. That's why in Fresno they're so brave.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It's so easy to kill somebody in Fresno and get away with it, because they don't really care about gang-related murders.
These gang-related murders, homicides, are they Bulldogs going against other entities like Norteños, Sureños, Crips, and whatnot, or is this Bulldog on Bulldog?
It varies. You got like Bulldog on Bulldogs, like some stuff that happened, like I was telling you earlier, in prison. Things that follow you, and you see your enemy or somebody that stabbed your brother, your cousin, and you get your chance. You do what you do. And then I heard, the homies, they also beginning into it. As recently, there's been a lot of Sureños that have been moving into Fresno, so they're going at it with them. And I guess now they got the MS gang members moving in. So the homies right now, they're just a big old freak for all right now. And then we be going at it a lot with the blacks and the Asians. Like not too long ago, I'm sure you've seen on the news where there was what are those murders called when there's a lot of people?
A mass shooting?
All at once. A mass shooting. It happened in 2019. It was in Fresno. It was like 7 Asians. Well, it was Asians. It was that time. It was the Asians and my homeboys. I remember I was in New Folsom, and they made the world news. There was a mass shooting in Fresno, and that was between the Bulldogs and Asian gangs. They shot like seven family members at a party. And that was a mass shooting. I think 2019. It came out on the news. It was world news. I remember I seen it in the world news when I was in New Folsom prison. And that was Bulldog on Asian shooting right there.
Is there any backstory on why this feud with the Asians started?
Well, from my understanding, if one of my homies shot at an Asian in front of his family members, and then this Asian told him, you know what, I want my family, not right now. And my homie was like, he didn't care, and he still shot at that, the Asian, with being around his family, and he was all right. Well, that was retaliation. Well, the Asian did come by at a party, and he did tell everybody, look, I'm telling you guys right now, you guys better leave. If not, whoever's here are going to get killed. He did give him the heads up. I give him that. And then, they didn't believe him, and sure enough, he came back with a few of the homies, and then, they were all in the backyard, and then they just started dumping. And when they started dumping, I think like 7 people died that day. And that's what it was over. It was, retaliation, or a homie shot somebody else earlier, and, And this guy just came back with all his homies and he let loose in the backyard full of people. I forgot what holiday they were celebrating. I think it was like a football game or something. They were celebrating something. I think it was a football game. That they had so many people right there at the party.
You know, whenever you hear about Bulldogs, man, you hear that they're a little wild. And of course, as you just mentioned to me a little previously, you know, they are known to go against each other. Is there certain Fresno entities that are known rivals against each other? Like, there's a history between these two Bulldog sets.
Okay, so it's like right now it's between Lewis and Bond and Lewis and McKenzie Street, my barrio. We be going at it. It's like it's one of them things where when you see each other, there's nothing to say. You just start shooting, and there's like a ongoing feud in prison and on the streets, and you just can't be around each other. Like McKenzie, not too long ago, I got jumped by Lewis Street in Salinas Valley. I got stabbed pretty bad because I had stabbed somebody from Lewis Street in Corcoran. So when I hit Salinas Valley, when I got out the shoe, that neighborhood was deeper than mine. And I ended up getting stabbed and all that, but because I was a big homie, I was considered at that time a big homie, well known and all that, they green-lighted Lewis Street. They got green-lighted in all the prisons, out on the streets, and in the county jails they were getting got. Well, that's what started a war between us, McKenzie Street and Lewis Street. And I remember there's 4 other cats that have a lot of influence. Well, one of them was, another homie from Lewis Street. And me and him, we're like oil and water. We don't get along, and wherever we see each other, it's one of the things where there's nothing to be said. We just, we do what we do. And it just happened that time. He was there at Salinas Valley Prison, and he had more homies than me. But like I said, I had more influence with the Bulldog car. It was a 45-man riot that day, but it was like 15 of his neighborhood, and the rest was all me, all my homies, and from other areas and stuff. But if I was between McKenzie and Lewis, or Lewis and Bond Street, that'd be going at it like tough.
Okay. Would you be able to explain to me why this rivalry with this gentleman? Like, why are you guys oil and water? Why do you guys not get along? And can you actually take me there to that day? When things kicked off. Did you guys know it was going to kick off? Did you prepare? How did it play out?
Well, between I could tell you the backstory between Bond Street and Lewis Street. It's over something stupid. It's always some Lewis Streeter went to a house party for a Bond Streeter, and then a Lewis Streeter stole a Bond Streeter a wife's purse, And then once they found out, it was over that. Well, the boyfriend of the female that the person belonged to ran into the Lewis Streeter, and then on the streets. Well, this is one thing that they show in the movie Menace to Society, where the actor runs up to the rival gang member and puts the gun in his stomach and he lets loose. Well, that's what my homeboy did to him. That's what we call it, right? And he did the same thing. He put the gun up to his stomach and just let him have it. Bam, bam, bam. The homie didn't die. He didn't die. I don't know how he survived. But after that, that's what kicked it off between Lewis Street and Bond Street, because that was kind of cool to do that, And that's for my neighborhood and them. It was because me and Bear, the homie from Lewis Street, he's their big homie. He's pro Lewis Street, like all he cares is about his neighborhood. Me, I'm pro Bulldogs. I was all about bringing Bulldogs up and was doing it right. And like I said, me and him, we're never together on the yard. Whenever I'm in the shoe, he's on Salinas, and whenever he's in the shoe, I hit Salinas. And at that one time, I got there, and they were every time I get there, they're telling me all the what we call the cheeseman, what's going on, all the drama and everything. I was like, well, that's not happening because I'm here now. And they just having Bear and them had just barely stabbed some young homies from Bond Street, and they were telling me about it. He went to the hole, and I was like, all right. What just happened, he got kicked back out to the yard. And then at that time, we were on lockdown because of that incident, and I had already got there from the shoe, and then I told Bear, look, you know what time it is as soon as we go to yard. So sure enough, here comes yard, everybody was strapped, but everybody was waiting on me and Bear.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Me and Bear, we took a stroll around the yard, and I'm telling him about everything that they've done, you know. And he's scared of me because I'm a big guy, and he's not so big, you know. And I'm telling him about all these dudes that they're stabbing, you know, going against Bulldog, you know, what we agreed upon and what we are, you know, what we're trying to, you know, establish there. And I'm pretty much telling him all his faults, and and he's telling me, no, fix that, you know, not like this, trying to, you know, backpedal. And finally, I make my move. I always carry my weapon on my wrist. I had a 9-inch metal on me, and I had wrapped my wrist with a rubber band, and I know how to flex my wrist where it dropped down. And I was wearing a sweater that day. As soon as I got it down, and he was right next to me, and I hit him in his chest. You can feel the wind just come out of him. He just goes, you know, you can feel the wind come out of him. And right when I was gonna go for the second hit, he grabbed me by my sleeves from the sweaters that I was wearing. And at that time, I had one of my homeboys from my neighborhood walking behind me, and he had one of his homeboys from his neighborhood walking behind him for security purposes. So that really, I already knew what was gonna happen. Everybody knew. And then at that time, when he grabbed me by the sleeves, his homie came from behind me real quick, and he sliced my eye open. And after that, I couldn't see. I went down, and when I hit him, I didn't notice where I hit him in front of, and I just happened to hit him in front of his neighborhood, you know, their little area. Well, 5 of them got on me, and then the SEALs, they shot the Mini 14 to get them off of me. And then, you know, they were stabbing me, you know. I got hit a few times, and then they shot the Mini 14 to get them off of me. And then once they got off of me, then the whole car rushed all Lewis Street. And after that, it was all bad. I had 3-4 homeboys surround me, and they were telling me because I couldn't see because of my eye, you know. And then they were like, "Hey, take still care, we got you." They were, you know, they were surrounding me, they were covering me. And then I just heard, you know, the Mini 14 going off, and then, you know, and then for what I could see, Lewis Street running around, you know, everybody was chasing them. And then after said and done, I was the worst one that got hit. So right away they took me off the yard and airlifted me by helicopter to UC Davis in San Jose Hospital due to my injuries. And then I ended up coming back that day. And then I seen what happened. I heard what happened. Out of Lewis Street, all of them got punctured. You know, they had puncture holes, slices, and everything. And then from my side, there was only 3 of us: me, my stallion, and a homeboy from North Side that got hit. He got his throat slit. But after that, the homies told me, "Look, we're gonna green light Lewis Street because, you know, there's supposed to be a 1-on-1 between you and Bear. Based on they jumped you, we're green lighting them. They're gonna get got everywhere." And sure enough, I didn't have to say anything. I didn't do nothing. And they were getting got in Corcoran Prison, in Salinas. They were getting got in Pleasant Valley, Avenal, in the county jail. And then me, I couldn't go back to Salinas Valley, so they transferred me back to Corcoran Prison. And sure enough, right there, they were getting got too. So that's how that ended up happening right there with Lewis Street. You know, why, you know. We became real, like, lifelong enemies.
There was never any talks of coming together, squashing the beef, you know, uniting as one.
Well, see, when I got off the shoe the first time, you know, like I told you, when I get off the shoe, they always tell me all the drama going on, right? And then when Bear was in the hole for getting off on the young homie from Bond, I barely got off the shoe, and so we came to the agreement as one. We go, look, you know, there's no enemies.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I said I got 60 seconds. Want me to call you back, or?
Yeah. Call me back.